Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're taking a super high-energy dive into the hidden mechanics of high-stakes venture building. We are unpacking a genuinely fascinating doctoral research synthesis by James H. Campbell, and we're looking specifically at the junior mineral exploration and development sector, mainly through a Southern African lens. Now, we aren't just talking about rocks and drills today. We're actually going to unpack the underlying systems that create, preserve, or entirely destroy value in what is literally one of the most volatile industries on the planet. Okay, let's dive into this, because there's this very romantic myth out there. You know the one. It tells us that finding good geology is the only key to a successful mine. You just strike gold and the rest is history, right? Well, absolutely not. The reality is that so many incredibly promising projects flat out fail long before a single shovel ever hits the dirt. We're going to look at exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how the elite industry players bypass this failure using very specific frameworks.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 5 key concepts. Number 1, the mining conversion gap. 2, redefining sector failure. 3, the incubator platform solution. 4, the 4-layer engine. And finally, number 5, archetypes of orchestration. Let's get into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the mining conversion gap. In regions like Southern Africa, which on paper should be absolutely booming, we face this massive structural problem. There's a stark contrast between raw geological potential, meaning your physical minerals and your licenses, and an actual investable venture. Because an investable venture, that requires the right people, capital, a secure title, a compelling story, and a clear route to market. The real constraint here isn't a shortage of minerals. It's a severe shortage of integrated venture building capability. It's the sheer ability to convert a license into a functioning company at the right time. If we trace the actual life cycle of a mining venture, it goes like this. You move from an initial idea to acquiring a license, to identifying a target, drilling, proving feasibility, and then finally reaching a sale or a producing mine. And that dreaded conversion gap, it happens right there in those brutal middle stages. Geological uncertainty is honestly just one piece of the puzzle. The much harder problem is simply surviving this pipeline, attracting the right partners, the right capital, and the right people exactly when you need them.
Moving right along to Section 2, redefining sector failure.
We really need to completely shift our paradigm regarding what failure actually looks like in this sector. Usually, we think of failure as going bankrupt, right? Shutting the doors. But the research redefines it as economic value destruction. A company doesn't actually have to die to fail. In fact, the market is absolutely full of these zombie shells. They're these heavily diluted vehicles that just stagger along aimlessly. They're hungry for capital, but completely devoid of life, long after the original shareholder value was wiped out. Surviving as a zombie shell is a silent, creeping killer of capital. And expanding on that, one of the most brilliant insights from the research, specifically from capital market expert Peter Demoni, is that time itself is a value destroyer. If a project stalls, your general and administrative expenses, your G&A, they just slowly erode your capital base. You end up missing those perfect, fleeting commodity price windows. And that leads to punitive dilution just to keep the lights on. The company's technically alive on paper, but for sure, the investment has failed. Which brings us to Section 3, the incubator platform solution. So how do serial founders actually insulate themselves against that silent value destruction? And this brilliantly illustrates our main solution. The research shows that successful junior entrepreneurship is not explained by having good geology or a bunch of capital alone. It's the disciplined orchestration of project, people, timing, capital, legitimacy, and optionality, all while operating under persistent uncertainty. Think of it like conducting a massive symphony. If you just have an amazing violinist, let's say a great geological asset, but your percussion is totally off and the brass section didn't show up, well, the symphony fails. You have to have a platform that orchestrates all of these elements in perfect harmony. A standalone junior mining company is incredibly fragile, but incubator platforms, they fix this by essentially institutionalizing scarcity. They build this protective umbrella over early-stage risk. They pool deal flow, high-level judgment, capital architecture, and corporate memory across multiple different ventures. So by sharing those capabilities and reputation and governance discipline, these platforms materially lower the overall failure rate. It's a real game changer. Let's look under the hood in Section 4, the 4-layer engine. So how exactly does this protective umbrella operate?
The research outlines what's called the TIPS framework. It's this highly dynamic system made of 4 layers. T stands for the core engine, which is your technology and people. I is the innovation layer, serving as the operational platform of shared routines. P is the venture pipeline. This actually recycles lessons and even teams from failed projects so the entire system learns. And finally, S is for systems, which is the ecosystem interface, managing all those complex relationships with investors, regulators, and communities to maintain total legitimacy.
And finally, Section 5, Archetypes of Orchestration. When you look at the interviews with elite industry players, it is so fascinating to see how differently they apply these very same concepts. On one hand, we've got Andrew Bowering's Promoter Fixer personal platform. He actually intentionally goes after what he calls hairy but fixable assets, projects whose value is depressed because of social or vendor issues. His absolute superpower is repair judgment. But then contrast that with Mark Thompson. His model is built on extreme selection discipline. It's all about saying no dozens and dozens of times for every single yes to ruthlessly isolate risk.
Now let's look at 2 more approaches that are heavily relevant to Southern Africa. Emma Priestley focuses on turnaround discipline. She essentially proves that when a project stalls out, it's almost never a missing asset. It is usually a stacked failure of people and governance. She steps in and brings the strict discipline needed to fix those process routes. Conversely, Ian Stalker focuses on speed to value by targeting brownfield restarts. He looks for hidden value where prior owners left data and infrastructure behind. He treats human resources and mineral resources as total co-equals, and he moves with incredible speed to hit those perfect commodity price windows.
And lastly, looking at these massive institutional scale approaches, John Teeling views the listed corporate shell itself as a piece of entrepreneurial technology. He uses a portfolio logic, taking many shots on goal across entirely separate vehicles, so if one fails, it doesn't sink the whole ship. Meanwhile, Ron Thiessen's Hunter Dickinson Inc. model operates as a massive trademark and service provider. But in both of these cases, the crucial takeaway is that the corporate structure itself is being wielded as a distinct, deliberate tool to engineer success. Which brings us to our final thought for today. After seeing how the most elite players in the junior mining space literally orchestrate their success, it really challenges everything we assume about high-stakes ventures. If you were risking your own capital today, are you just investing in the potential of the dirt in the ground? Or are you actually investing in the resilience, the intelligence, and the architecture of the system built above it? It's a pretty vital question to ask, and I highly encourage you to explore the full research synthesis to uncover even more of these mechanics. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what's really driving value.